So let's take a look at a position, an angle in standard position in a circle. An angle in standard position has the vertex of the angle at the origin, and the initial side of the angle is on the positive x-axis, and the terminal side is somewhere else in the circle. So if I look at a point on the circle, because in this case we're talking about the unit circle, and a unit circle has a radius of 1, and I drop a perpendicular always, always, always to the x-axis. You always do these to the x-axis. That means the hypotenuse of this right triangle is 1. Since our landmark angles are either angles that are on, where the terminal side is on one of the axes itself, or where this reference angle to the x-axis is 30, 45, or 60 degrees, I end up with this. That means the sine of theta is opposite, which is y, over hypotenuse, which is 1. So the sine of this angle is just whatever the y value is of this point. The cosine is equal to the adjacent side, which is x, over 1. So cosine is just x, and tangent is opposite y over adjacent x. So tangent is y over x. We're going to need to know that later. That's going to come in handy. So when we look at the landmark angles on the unit circle, I'm going to do a couple of these with you. But before I do anything with these, I always draw my 30, 60, 90 triangles, because I'm going to need them. And I like to draw 60, 30, and 30, 60 a little differently, so I could just kind of look at this is my reference angle to the x-axis. So, and then a 45, 45, 90. These don't have to be drawn to scale. I don't care. But think about what happens here. We know the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2, right? And that's the one I said, if you remember, the sine of 30 degrees is always 1/2. Normally we would say 1 over 2. But this hypotenuse is on the unit circle, and so we know that the hypotenuse of each of these is 1. Oh, well, this is twice this, so this is 1/2, and we're going to write it as a fraction. So the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2, which is like 1/2 over 1. If you remember, this medium side, because you're supposed to know these, is the short side times the square root of 3. So the 1/2 times the square root of 3 is just the square root of 3 over 2. Again, just rearranging these, this is the square root of 3 over 2 now, and this is the 1/2. If the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 right triangle is 1, remember that 1 then is the same thing as one of these legs times the square root of 2. So to solve for x, I'd have to divide both sides by the square root of 2. So x is 1 divided by the square root of 2, but I need to rationalize this denominator. So multiply by the square root of 2, which is going to make that 2. Square root of 4 is 2. Same thing in the numerator, though, so I'm multiplying by something equivalent to 1. 1 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 2. So if the hypotenuse of this 45, 45, 90 triangle is 1, then each of the legs is equal to the square root of 2 over 2. I need to know those to be able to do the rest of this. On the axis itself, I'm going to do this 90-degree angle. So if the terminal side is at 90 degrees, if this is a unit circle, this is 1 unit away from the origin, which means x is 0, and in this case y is positive 1. Now, that means this is also a 90-degree angle. If pi radians is 180 degrees, this is half of that, so this is pi over 2 for the radian measure. That's all you're going to do on today's assignment. You're going to fill in the rest of these. I'm going to do one more. Let's look at 225 degrees. Now remember, these landmark angles all have a reference angle of 30, 45, or 60 degrees. So 225 degrees would be 45 degrees past 180. So this has got to be 225 degrees. Think about this in terms of this is pi, this is half pi, so each of the 45-degree angles is going up by 1/4 of pi. So this would be pi over 4, pi over 2, so which is 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which is just pi. This is 5 pi over 4. So 5 pi over 4. Now, I need to find the x and y values at this point. I go back to here. It's a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. My x and y's are here. So I would put the square root of 2 over 2 and the square root of 2, oops, I put it in the wrong place. Should go with this one. Square root of 2 over 2 and the square root of 2 over 2 would be my x and y, but in quadrant 3, x is negative and y is also negative. So in this case, both of those need to be negative. In quadrant 1, they're both positive x and y, etc. So make sure you have the signs on these done correctly. So your assignment for tonight, and just copy these onto your assignments that are already on your unit circle. Think about these reference angles. This is a 30-degree reference angle, so don't draw this on your sheet. But, oh, what's this side going to equal? That's my y. What's this side going to equal? That's my x for my point. It's a 30-degree angle, but then what is the notation in terms of radians for this? So your assignment tonight, fill in the rest of the unit circle and even fill in these values on that unit circle for your assignment.